right now live. Do you love me starting that way? With like weirdo, like, what? I bet you do. I bet you love that. I bet you love it. Oh look, I just got a notification on my own thing that I've gone live. That's amazing. Thanks. Thanks, Instagram. Thanks for letting me know that I've gone live. But it was probably like my personal Instagram that was telling me that I went live, right? That's probably what was happening there. Probably. Hey friends, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Here we are. My name is Shannon Coates, Dr. Shannon Coates, even, would you believe? And I am a voice teacher and someone who develops resources for independent voice teachers. Resources like the Vocal Instrument 101, which is an online self-directed course that you are very welcome to take, which talks about something that we're going to talk about today, the anatomy and physiology of the vocal instrument. And I also do lots of mentoring kind of things, which, you know, if you want to check that out, shannon-coates.com. Don't go to shannoncoates.com. Well, I mean, go if you want. Go to shannoncoates.com and check out my buddy, my name buddy, who is a triathlete. Yes, she's a triathlete. So you'll know immediately when you're at like shannoncoates.com that it's not me. You'll know that pretty much right off the top. You'll be like, wow, Shannon has really changed. And also, she looks so fit. You'll know immediately, not Shannon. What I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that, some of the language and some of the texts and some of the things around voice pedagogy slash, oh, hi Kathy, voice pedagogy and around textbooks, etc. And what brought this on for me is on over the weekend, I put a little question in my Instagram stories asking about the voice ped text. Like if you did an undergraduate voice pedagogy course, what was the text that you used? And so just curious, right? Just so curious. And so lots and lots of people responded, which is really fun. And lots of folks saying, you know, we used the structure of singing, Miller's structure of singing. And I'm going to talk about why this isn't necessarily a great course for undergraduate people, or sorry, great text for undergraduate singers, undergraduate teachers. Oh my gosh, speak. And it's also not such a great text if you're a beginning teacher, and maybe not even if you're an independent teacher. It's like super duper classical biased, first of all. So there's no information in here about how to teach music theater or styles, and all of the stuff in here is really geared toward like Western classical singing. Plus the prose, it's really freaking confusing. It's a dense, dense read. I love this text for a graduate course where you can have a discussion around it. I love that. But for a beginning independent teacher, or even an independent teacher who isn't super into like doing lots and lots of research, not such a great text, in my opinion. Some folks talked about using The Diagnosis and Correction of Vocal Faults by McKinney. Something visceral comes up in me. Oh, and I have to say too, friends who said to me, yeah, I felt kind of dumb when I read that book because in my undergrad course, because, and I haven't touched it since, because like, and I just want to say, I release you from that. This is not an easy read. It is a very dense, very like meandering, it looks like it should be well set out, but it's not. It's just not well set out, even though it looks like it should be. Like the appendix or the index looks like it should be really like, it should be really logical, but it doesn't, it isn't, in my opinion. Sorry if I'm breaking, if I'm like, if Miller is your favorite text, amazing. That's fantastic. I don't want to like be mean. I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm just trying to say like, if you didn't find it a great text, you're not alone. Okay. Diagnosis and Correction of Vocal Faults. Hey, guess what? Vocal faults makes me want to like be really, really angry at you. Why? Why are you saying vocal faults? It's like literally the worst. Don't call it vocal faults. Some of the other things that came up, the where, the basics of vocal pedagogy, Your Voice and Inside View, McCoy's Your Voice and Inside View. Yes, the cassette that goes with the McKinney, the cassette that goes with the McKinney can be useful. I'm not saying these are not useful in their own way. I'm saying for a beginning voice teacher, for example, or for a voice pedagogy, undergraduate voice pedagogy course, what are we talking about? So I wanted to just break down a couple of things. First of all, when we're talking about voice pedagogy, so often what happens, and so often what we get in our voice pedagogy courses, especially our undergraduate courses, and you know, I teach an undergraduate voice pedagogy course, so what we get in our texts, so often what we get is anatomy and physiology. Anatomy meaning the structures, the actual structures, physiology meaning how those structures work together. And that's not a bad thing, but that's not voice pedagogy, right? So pedagogy, as Thomas is here right now, will possibly concede. Pedagogy is a word that has changed its meaning in the last however long and has come to mean, it originally meant how we teach children, the systems and structures and philosophies we have in place around how we teach children. And it has come now to mean basically our philosophy, systems, structures, education around how we teach. So how we teach, right? Yeah. So this is what this has come to mean. So understanding anatomy and physiology of the vocal instrument or of the voice, that's an important part of being a better teacher, I believe. I think that all of us will benefit by understanding what the fundamentals are of the anatomy and physiology of the vocal instrument, of this instrument, right? I absolutely believe that. Obviously I do, right? Oh, Emily is asking, what text did we use when you took my class? Your Voice and Inside View. The basics though, not, or maybe, I don't remember how long ago you took my class. If the basics was available, if you had an online PDF version, then you used Your Voice and Inside View, the basics. And if it wasn't available then we used like probably one or two. This is the 3rd edition of the McCoy. So yeah, Scott McCoy's text. So anatomy and physiology. This is like, often becomes the basics or the you know, the primary part of what we do in our undergraduate voice ped classes, because myself included, we generally don't have the luxury of being able to teach a separate A&P class, a separate anatomy and physiology class, or to require that someone takes a separate anatomy and physiology class before they do a voice pedagogy class, right? So I know in the way that I structured my class, the first term is anatomy and physiology. So obviously I make it as applicable as possible, but we definitely, I want you to get that information. And so what happens then is we get textbooks then that are considered voice pedagogy textbooks that are primarily anatomy and physiology and voice science, right? So Your Voice and Inside View is primarily anatomy and physiology and voice science. Not a bad thing, but understand that when you get this textbook, you're going to understand anatomy and physiology a whole lot better, and you're going to understand your voice science a whole lot better. And like, honestly, the chapter on the brain in this book is basically worth the price of admission. It's Lynn Helding's chapter on the brain, but and how we learn. So that is not a bad thing, but understand that that's not pedagogy or pedagogy. You've affected me. I say pedagogy. Why is pedagogy coming out of my mouth? I do not know. Here in Canada and in England, we say pedagogy. So we had a whole discussion about this online over the weekend as well. And often in the States, y'all say pedagogy for some reason. I don't know why. You just like morph that word over to goji. Who knows? Where did that come from? No one knows. It's a pedagogue and pedagogy, but whatever. It's fine. Do what you got to do there. Anyway, so that isn't necessarily pedagogy, right? That isn't how to teach. That is what's happening in the vocal instrument, how the bones and how the cartilages, how the muscles, how the structures, what they look like, how they function, and how they fit together to create the vocal sound. That's what that is. And I've used this text in my class for years. And it was the text that when it first came out, I think it first came out in 2012. I think the first edition is 2012. I could be wrong. I have it on my shelf over there. I just can't remember. So this one is 2020, if I remember. Yes, because we can make the voice go, well, and understanding anatomy and physiology gives you, will help you to be a better diagnostician. 100%. Nothing replaces good ears. In other words, knowing what the sound is that we want. Nothing replaces that. But understanding how things function and move together, that is really fundamental. And especially if you're already, you already have the tools to be a good diagnostician, will just help you to be a better diagnostician. So I start my courses with anatomy and physiology, and that's why I created the Vocal Instrument 101, because I want folks to have a way to get the anatomy and physiology where they don't necessarily have to read a textbook like this one or The Structure of Singing. Oh, sorry, which one are you Kathy, Your Voice and Inside View. You know what, Kathy, I'll put all of the links to the texts that I'm talking about. I'll put them all in my in the comments. Yeah. So those, understanding that information is going to help you for sure. It's definitely going to help you. Now we can also get a little bit overwhelmed in like all the things, but that's the reason that I made the Vocal Instrument 101. I wanted people to have an online course, and there are lots of other online courses and lots of other texts and all that kind of thing that you can get where you can understand anatomy and physiology. But keep in mind, and voice science, right? There's lots of voice science stuff out there too. But keep in mind that that is not pedagogy. That's not learning how to teach, right? So even the books, my current favorite voice pedagogy textbook is Kari Reagan's book. And again, I'll put the link in my, Dr. Kari Reagan's book. I'll put the link in the comments. I can't find it right now. I think it must be upstairs on my, you know how when you're reading a book and you like take it with you from room to room to room to room, and like I'm in the middle of something that I'm thinking about in that book. And so it's like, I'm pretty sure it's upstairs beside my bed right now. So I didn't grab, it's not right there on my shelf, so I didn't grab it. I don't have it right here with me, but I will put the link in the chat. And for folks on Instagram, I'll figure something out. I don't know. Folks on Instagram, go on to Facebook maybe. You can find the links there. So Kari Reagan's textbook, current favorite, because it has the anatomy and physiology, it has the voice science, but it's really concise. And it's really just the fundamentals, right? There's not more there than you need. It's fundamentals, it's concise, and everything in that textbook then leads you toward exercises, tools, and ways to apply the information. Are you going to learn how to teach from reading that textbook? No. The only way you can learn how to teach, learning to teach is like learning to sing. The only way you can learn how to teach is by doing it. It's the only way you can learn. You can't learn how to teach by going to school and getting a voice pedagogy degree. You can't learn how to teach by taking an undergraduate voice pedagogy class. You can't learn how to teach by reading a voice pedagogy textbook. As fabulous as that textbook may be, you can't learn how to teach unless you're actually teaching. You have to do the thing to learn the thing. This is the way singing is too. So this is part of the reason, and those of you who have been teaching for a long time will likely know that as well about yourself. Like, even if you are super prepared. So, yes. So here's one, so I teach undergraduate voice pedagogy courses. I'm working with crops, I'm working with cohorts of folks who are, hey Liz, folks who have either been teaching for like, you know, this long or who have never taught before in their lives. And we have a mentored practicum as part of our undergraduate voice pedagogy course. So Professor Lorna McDonald set it up that way, and I'm very fortunate to be able to also have access to TAs, graduate level TAs, to help me to administrate that, because it's an 8-week teaching practicum that the folks who take the undergraduate voice pedagogy course at the University of Toronto get to do. It's mentored, they are, and they have, you know, it's a whole thing. And even those folks who are well prepared. So I do classes on how to do your first lesson. I do classes on choosing exercises for pedagogical intent. I do classes on, I mean, they've had a whole term on anatomy and physiology. I do classes on, choosing repertoire. I do classes on language and communication. I do classes on, like, and they have a whole outline of what to teach, right? So they're given like an outline of, you know, here's what you're going to teach now, here's what you're going to teach now, here's what you're going to teach now, right? And they have a textbook. So they have a textbook with tons and tons and tons of exercises and lots and lots of different, you know, things that could be happening in the voice. Even those folks, their first lesson, they still don't know what they're doing, right? You have to learn how to teach by teaching. You can be the most prepared person in the world. You can have all the information. Folks who teach in classrooms do teaching practicums. Why do they do teaching practicums as part of their training? Why do they do teaching practicums? Because you have to learn how to teach by teaching. I don't know if I'm going to say it any more times. Can I say it a few more times? You've got to, the only way to learn how to be a teacher is to actually do the teaching. So yes, you can have lots of preparation, you can have lots of knowledge, and lots of folks are better sort of natural teachers, if you will, right off the top, and that's all good. And if you've had really excellent teaching modeled to you through the years, you're also likely going to be a few steps ahead in terms of your own teaching. You're likely going to have, you know, things that you can draw on in your own teaching. Yes, and then you need to reflect on that teaching. Yes, you do. So there is that comment just came up on, hey Sarah, that came up on Instagram there. But the reflection part is also part of that. This is also part of the mentored teaching program that I do with my undergraduate voice students. So, voice pedagogy students. So, I am here today just to say, consider a few things. Consider that when you are looking at a voice pedagogy text, for example, consider what you're going to get out of that text, or a course, for example, or if you're going to school to get a degree or whatever. Consider what you're actually going to get out of that. Is it going to make you a better teacher in terms of your actual ability to teach, your understanding of how learning works, how assessment protocols work, all that kind of thing? Or is it going to give you some information about anatomy and physiology? And or is it going to give you some information about exercises? Is it going to help you be a better diagnostician? That's something that comes with time, certainly, but also being a better diagnostician can definitely be aided by understanding the fundamentals of anatomy and physiology. Absolutely. You know what also makes you a really good diagnostician? Listening to a lot of voices, and shadowing other voice teachers, and working with voice teachers, and being mentored and mentoring. Doing it is what helps you to be a really good diagnostician. Doing it. But understanding is also part of it. So understanding the anatomy and physiology. So I just wanted to be like, the resources that you're using, if you want to be a better voice teacher, like if you want your pedagogy to be better, in other words, yes, seek out the right kind of learning opportunities for what you need. Exactly. So if you want to be a better voice teacher, seek out, again, understanding anatomy and physiology is one thing, and like I said, I got a whole course for it, and I'm doing the live version of that course next weekend. So if you're interested in that, hit me up. I've got the information. So don't get me wrong, I love anatomy and physiology. I love teaching it, and love making sure we understand what's going on in the instrument. But if you want to apply the information better, and if you want to be a better teacher in terms of your understanding of how to teach, find the learning opportunities that are going to work for you. So find opportunities where you can be mentored. I do that. There are lots of other folks around who do that. I think Kari Reagan does that. Dr. Kari Reagan does that. Find the opportunities where you can be mentored. Find the opportunities where you can work in cohorts with other voice teachers. Again, I do this work. I know this is a little bit self-serving, but this is the reason that I do this work the way that I do this work. Is because I don't want to just teach anatomy and physiology. I don't want to just teach voice science. That's all in the brain. I want you to be a better teacher. And in order to be a better teacher, we've got to get in there and get our hands dirty and actually do the teaching. And then we've got to have some protocols in place for assessing that teaching and for reflecting on that teaching and having specific information about how to change how we're teaching so that we're we're moving along the path and not just teaching the way that we were taught to teach, right? Not just teaching the way that we were taught, which is in many cases beautiful, but in many cases not so awesome, right? Teaching the way that we were taught. Many of us were not. I was taught very well. I had lots of great teachers, but I also had a few teachers that weren't so awesome, you know. And like, here's the thing. Those of us who went through, so our classroom teachers do practicums, right? They have to have experience teaching. They have to be assessed while they're teaching. They have to do the work and they have to observe other teachers. They have the practicums. Our classroom teachers in the public school system, in Canada anyway, I shouldn't speak about anybody anywhere else, but in Canada, they have to have that, at least some of that hands-on learning and have done some teaching before they actually get a real teaching job. Our academic teachers, not so much. So in our post-secondary institutions, in our tertiary institutions, so in our universities and colleges, not so much, right? Like, so many of our applied teachers in our institutions are hired, especially in our Western classical institutions, are hired because they had a big career. No one knows if they can teach or not. So then and no one's seen them teach except for maybe a master class or two. We all know that master classes are not teaching. That's not applied teaching. You do a master class, you go in, you leave. You don't have to work with someone over like a long period of time over 4 years to make sure that they're actually progressing in the way they want. You don't have to do any kind of assessment protocol. You don't do anything, right? So master classes, that's not teaching. So we get that we as folks who have come out of the academic institution and our independent teachers, same thing, right? Anybody can like be like, hey, I'm an independent teacher. And I have no problem with that. Don't get me wrong. I have no problem with that. I'm saying that if you were taught in an academic institution, if you have a degree from an academic institution, if you were taught well, you are really fortunate. And if you were taught well in in a way that allows you to also be a good teacher, unicorn teacher right there. Yeah. Because our academic teachers, I love, don't get me wrong, lots of love there, are working in a really specific area, and so often no one's seen them teach. So now you come and you take the way that you've been taught and bring it into the independent studio, and the independent studio is a whole other, if you've been taught well in a way that allows you to also teach well in an independent studio setting, let me put all of that in there, that's unicorn, right? That's unicorn. Because that's not what our academic teachers are there for. That's not what they're doing. They're not there to like make sure that you have the pedagogy to be able to teach an independent studio, right? That's not what they're there for. So we've got those teachers, and then you as an independent teacher come out of the academic system and start to teach in the way that you were taught. but the way that you were taught in an academic system is not necessarily useful for our independent teachers, right? Yes. Oh, Liz, such a good point. Let me just throw it out there. Liz Coates says, I was taught well, no relationship, by the way. Not that we know of anyway, right? I was taught well for my voice, but spoiler, I'm not teaching me. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. If you've been taught well, I mean, hopefully you've been taught well, and that's fantastic. And, you know, not all of us were taught well. I was taught well, but not all of us were taught well all the time. I mean, I was taught well. And so anyway, it's all good. But if you were taught well in a way that allows you to be a good, or to be a really efficient, successful teacher in an independent studio, that's unicorn, my friend. That is unicorn, because like, yeah, so relatable for healthcare professions. Oh, yeah, similar, I don't know, but oh, for voice healthcare professions, is that what you mean? Probably, I'm not sure. Tell me more about how that's relatable for healthcare professions. I'm not entirely sure. Because don't healthcare professions, don't doctors and nurses and stuff have to do like practicums? They do, right? They do in Canada. I know for sure. They have to do like way long practicums in order to be able to practice on their own. I hope they do everywhere. Yeah, so probably this is my office hours have gone on long enough, but this is the main thing. The main point here is, if you would like your pedagogy, the efficiency of your teaching, the impact of your teaching to increase your pedagogy. I'm a PT who works with singers, but a lot of practitioners are amazing at studying, but not as great as getting the info to their patients. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly. I hear you on that one. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll just say that out loud so that it's on the recording, but I'm a PT who works with singers, but a lot of practitioners are amazing at studying, but not as great at getting the info to their patients. Yes, exactly. So this is the whole thing. Brain knowledge is one thing, and it's the same with singing. Brain knowledge is one thing. You can know everything about how to sing, but until you actually sing, you don't know how to sing. And the only way to learn how to sing is to sing. And the only way to learn how to teach is to teach. And as independent teachers, we don't have necessarily a body around us, especially as independent teachers, right? We don't have that necessarily that cohort or that way to get that practicum in. And I'm saying that those are available now, especially through, especially because everybody is online now. So those are available, and look them up if you want to do some more work on that. And maybe don't necessarily buy the next course or the next textbook that comes out. I mean, do if you want to, obviously, but like maybe look for the thing that's going to get you that practicum aspect. Maybe look for that. Okay. We talked about anatomy and physiology. We talked about the difference between anatomy and physiology and voice science, studying anatomy and physiology and voice science, and studying pedagogy, actually how to teach. If you have any questions, throw them up in the comments at some point. I will get back to you for sure. If you have some comments, or you would like, or you're watching on the replay, as they say, you know, hashtag replay, if you want to. And have a terrific teaching week. Let that kind of filter in this week about like, how can I find ways to make my teaching more effective? And who's out there that I could either observe, or that they could observe me, or that you could have you can form a cohort of teachers where you share with each other. For sure, there's lots of ways to do that, and then see what's out there. All right, friends, have a great day.